Hello, my name is Chris, and today I'd like to talk about this idea that quitting smoking is all in your head. This thing that people tell us with the best of intentions. They say, oh, quitting smoking, you'll be fine. It's all in your head. I want to talk about why that idea is not necessarily true. In fact, in one sense, it's very much not true at all. And yet in another sense, it sort of kind of is a little bit true. And yet even in the sense that it's true, it's not very helpful and doesn't do anything for us. And you've probably just heard me say that, and now you're watching this video thinking, what? It is true, and yet it isn't true, and yet in the way that it's true, it's not helpful, and what? If you watch this video through, I will hopefully be able to explain clearly what the heck I am talking about. Before I do, just a quick reminder, tomorrow is Saturday, May the 29th. That makes it the last Saturday of the month. That makes it time for our monthly live stream hangout. If you've never been to one of the live streams before, basically what happens is I come online for like an hour and a half maybe, and I try my very best to answer any questions that you might have. We chat about things like quitting smoking or mental health or whatever you want to talk about. That is 6:30 p.m. UK time. If you don't want to miss it, the link to where the live stream will be is in the card above and the description below. I will also post on social media tomorrow so that you can come and join us. That's tomorrow though. Today let's talk about this thing that quitting smoking is all in your head. I am generalizing here, but I think that there are two main types of people who present this idea that it's all in your head. And the first are those who, despite having the very, very best of intentions, never actually smoked and therefore never had to really go through the quit process and don't have that personal first-hand experience. So they're applying a logic and a rationale from other things in life and trying to fit quitting smoking into that, which I think overlooks what an incredibly unique experience quitting smoking can be for some people. For me personally, I found quitting smoking to be very, very different from giving up alcohol. I think it's very, very different from giving up drugs and other addictions. It's a very, very unique experience. And although, yes, mindset is absolutely essential, and yes, mindset is in the mind, there is much more to it than simply it all being in your head. The other type of people, and again I'm sort of generalizing, are those who quit and yet found it to be quite easy. So those people, if I had a hat, I would doff it to you, but I do not have a hat. Because my experience was that it wasn't very easy at all. And I think when people who quit and found it easy come out with this thing of, well, I found it easy and therefore you must be able to find it easy too, I think that really overlooks the fact that, what you find easy, I may not. I'm sure that you probably find doing your laundry to be very, very simple. When I put my clothes in the washing machine, they somehow come out dirtier than when they went in. When I try and iron those clothes, I iron more creases into them. I am incapable of doing laundry. And that's just laundry, right? If you imagine the myriad of complexities surrounding the challenge of quitting smoking. If quitting smoking was so universally easy, I wouldn't be making these videos. Alan Carr would never have written his book. There wouldn't be, we'd just do it as simple as most people can wash their clothes. It's not always as easy as it makes out, because quitting smoking is a very, very complex thing. It affects and is affected by the entirety of our being and our existence. I think it affects and is affected by our mental state, our physical well-being, our environment, our relationships with others, our predisposition to addiction and mental health struggles. There's a whole web of things that may make my quit very different to yours and vice versa. Of course, that's not to say that it's universally hard either. I would hate for someone watching one of my videos for the very first time to jump to the conclusion that quitting smoking is too hard and therefore they don't ever try. Quitting smoking for some people can be a challenge, but it's a challenge that can be overcome. I think if we go into this with the mindset of this is going to be so hard and I'm never going to be able to do it, but I've got to try, well, we're kind of setting ourselves up for failure if we're telling ourselves it's going to be so hard. Because if it's going to be so hard that it seems insurmountable, we're not going to put the same kind of effort, energy and attention into it as if we would. I don't know, what am I saying? As if we would if, sorry, we wouldn't put the same amount of energy, attention and effort into quitting than we would, fucking hell. I'm going to stop and carry on. Should we try that again? If we tell ourselves that quitting smoking is so incredibly hard, we would not put the same amount of energy, attention and effort into it than we would if we told ourselves that yes, it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that I can overcome. Nailed it. So we can get into this mindset of, you know, this challenge may be easy, this challenge may be difficult, regardless as to how hard this challenge may or may not be, I can absolutely do it. And then we get into the process. And then someone comes along and says, it's all in your head, this. All in your head. I think that's very dismissive. And I think it's very disheartening. You know, you can be sat there absolutely rattling because your body is craving the nicotine. I don't think there's a word in the English language that can fully explain or fully describe the intensity of a really, really bad craving. I think the only way to describe it is to stand in front of this camera and go, it's a bit like this. Right. That's what it felt like for me, and like even that is kind of timid. You know, you go through that awful feeling and someone says, it's all in your head, this. You're dealing with the quitter's flu or struggling to sleep and someone says, it's all in your head, this. You're going through any number of real physical feelings and someone says, it's all in your head, this. And I just think that's so dismissive. You know, are you saying that I'm imagining this? Are you saying that these very real physical feelings that I am feeling are not true or are not real? Are you saying that the only reason I feel bad is because I'm thinking that I feel bad, and if I just stop thinking about it, then I'll be okay? Like, have you ever tried to deliberately not think about something? Like, whatever you do right now, don't think about the colour blue. Just don't think about the colour blue at all. Don't think about a blue car, don't think about a blue elephant, don't think about a blue Smartie, don't think about Blue's Clues, Deep Blue Something, Blue Monday, Blue Lagoon. Don't think about any of those things, right? It's very hard when this thing is persistent. You know, the more I say blue at you, you're going to start thinking about the colour blue. So it's very challenging when someone says, just don't think about it. Of course, the good news is that a lot of these physical symptoms can be overcome. Things like the quitter's flu, things like, just feeling a bit awful and run down when we're quitting can be overcome. And I'm sorry that the way to overcome them is not magical or special. It's very boring, very basic care stuff like eating a good diet, getting lots of rest, doing some physical activity, tapping into those self-care things that help us out. Even the cravings and withdrawals, I think, can be managed, as intense as they are, with things like breathing techniques. I haven't done that this video. And visualization things. I talked before about the purge, where I visualized that a craving was all the crap coming out of my body. Even that can be dealt with. And when you think about it in that sense, it's easy to argue that actually it kind of is all in your head. Because that decision to eat well, that decision to get lots of rest, that decision to do exercise comes from up here. The decision to breathe instead of having a cigarette comes from up here. The visualization process takes place up here. So you could draw the conclusion that although the problem may not be entirely in your head, maybe the solution is. But I don't think even that fully explains or fully deals with the complexity of quitting smoking and why some people struggle. For some people, quitting smoking can be a stressful experience. As our body goes through this cleaning, healing and repairing process, that can be quite stressful and take a mental toll on us. If you add to that the fact that when some people have a setback, they've quit smoking and then they pick up cigarettes again, that's often because, and I'm saying often, not always, often because they are going through some kind of stressful experience in their lives. Now, I don't know about you, but when I am going through a stressful time in my life, I don't always think clearly and I don't always make the best decisions. When I am stressed out, I don't always think clearly, I don't always make the best decisions. So it's very easy to say, logically I know this cigarette's doing nothing for me. Logically I know not to smoke it. But the more stress we get under and the more overwhelmed we are and the more things start to pile up on us, because you have to remember that before, what did we used to do to alleviate stress, or at least we told ourselves we were doing to alleviate stress? We'd reach for cigarettes. And now, part of the cause of our stress is doing without the thing that used to calm us down, we used to think calmed us down. And the more we get into this, the wider the gulf becomes between cognitive thinking and emotional feeling. And if you think about those two as being like a piece of land, and then this stress drives a wedge between the piece of land and they break off into islands, here's cognitive thinking, here's emotional feeling, we end up in this side of emotional feeling and get further and further and further away from being able to make those good, healthy, helpful decisions. A while ago, I started offering one-to-one quit smoking support sessions where I basically try and hold your hand through the process and offer a bit more personalized support than I can offer through the medium of video. And since I've been doing these time and time again, the same kind of thing comes up. Which is people say, I know that a cigarette does nothing for me. I know a cigarette won't change this. Logically, rationally, cognitively I know not to smoke, and yet I do it anyway. There is some part, some emotion, some intangible feeling that means I can't operate from this cognitive, rational, logical part of my brain. I'm operating from a very primitive part, very emotional part of my brain. And I just can't do the things that I know are good for me. And I absolutely get that, because this still happens to me from time to time. Not with smoking anymore, but with, you know, trying to achieve my health goals and get my body the way I want it to be. You know, I know that, you know, if I go and eat this steamed broccoli, I cannot speak today. If I eat this steamed broccoli, it's going to help me get closer to my health goals. But I'm stressed and I don't feel good and I want the pizza. And that inner little child has a temper tantrum. I want pizza, and eventually I give in to that rather than doing the thing that I know is good for me. So I absolutely, you know, I think the same thing applies to quitting smoking. And I appreciate that this primitive emotional mind cannot be reasoned with. It doesn't listen to logic. There is no way to rationalize with the addictive part of our brains. There just isn't. You know, there is a lot to be said for, you know, those of you who may have done CBT in the past will know about the cognitive triangle, thoughts, feelings and behaviors, and how they all link up. If you've never heard of that before, go and Google CBT cognitive triangle. I'm thinking I might make a video on this and how it relates to quitting smoking. But sometimes when we're in that moment, there is just no way to get into this cognitive way of thinking from our emotional state. There is no way to talk about it, which is why I so often talk about, you know, using our emotions to get through those times, about coming up with a visualization about what life is going to be like when you quit smoking, and getting really excited and really, you know, really wanting that. Because when we're in that moment, when we're in that emotional part of our brain, it's, I want this cigarette, I want this cigarette, I want this cigarette. It's about trying to make the desire to get to the end goal more than the desire for this short-term bit of pleasure, right? There's like a trade-off. I can have 2 or 3 minutes of smoking a cigarette, or I can have long-term health, happiness, whatever I want. And it's about combating this desire for the smoke with a greater desire for what we really, really want in life. You know, I think one of the things, I made a video a few weeks ago now about when I was in Liverpool and I was craving a drink of alcohol, and one of the things that helped me was to like play it through, right, and go, well, I could have this drink now, and it would get me out of this emotional state of wanting the drink. It would end the conflict of I want and I don't want. But then what? It would bring me further away from what I really want, which is to be sober, happy and healthy. There is no real conclusion to this video, I've just realised. It's basically, I'm just addressing the fact that it's not necessarily all in your head, this. And even if it is, that doesn't really make matters easy if we can't get into that aspect of our brain. You know, I think one thing that complicates things even further, if you add, you know, mental health struggles, if you had, you know, a history of depression or anxiety, that can complicate things even further. That can make it even harder to make those logical, rational decisions. Harder, but not impossible. I cannot stress this enough. Quitting smoking is not impossible for any of us. I know that there are some people who will disagree with me on that. you know, you're probably watching this video right now and say, I don't agree with that, but that is a hill I'm prepared to die on. There's got to be a way that we can do this. And it's about, you know, I said right at the start of this video that quitting smoking can be a very unique and very personal experience. So all we have to do is find that way that works for you, whatever that may be. Hope this has been helpful. I hope it's given you something to think about. Maybe it's just distracted you from a cigarette for 15-20 minutes, who knows. Thank you so much for watching either way. I really do appreciate your support. If you enjoy these videos and you haven't yet subscribed, please consider doing so. It really does help me out an awful lot. Of course, I must mention that I once wrote a book. It's called Quit Smoking and Be Happy, available in print and ebook form. Links are, you know, down in the description below. We also have our Finding Freedom Facebook group, facebook.com/group/findingfreedom1. This awesome community of people helping each other through their challenges, celebrating their successes. I'm so proud of everyone in that group and so proud to be a member of it. Finally, one last reminder, our live hangout is tomorrow, Saturday, May 29th at 6:30 p.m. Thank you so much for sticking all the way through to the end of this video. I will see you next time. Goodbye.